Hello, everyone. My name is Igor. I'm the host of the RIMM Podcast. Today, we are honored to welcome special guest Desmond Meade, a nationally recognized advocate, community leader, and driving force one of the most significant voting rights restoration efforts in American history. Through his leadership, millions of Floridians came up to having a second chance to participate in our democracy. Now Desmond Meade is taking the commitment to the next level to become a public leader, and he's running for the candidate for governor of the Florida. In this conversation, we'll discuss his personal journey, experience that shaped his leadership, his vision for Florida future. We'll also dive into some one of the most and biggest topics, hot debates that we are seeing among the Florida politicians, challenges that our state are facing, including AI centers, where we're going to build them, house affordability, property insurance, economic growth, education, infrastructure, and bringing people together in increasingly dividing political environment. Some of you maybe agree with him, some maybe or you don't. However, our job at the RIMM Podcast is simple: to provide thoughtful, respectful conversation that allow the voters to hear directly from people seeking to lead our communities and our beautiful state. Desmond, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the RIMM Podcast.
Igor, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, I'm looking forward to this conversation. And for me, I want to jump right off and say, listen, something that you said really triggered something in me, because you said now I'm getting ready to take it to the next level to become a public leader, right? Mm-hmm. And I would push back and say I've already been doing that. And so right. Everybody else that's running for governor is different than I am. Okay. Right now, they're politicians. I'm not a politician. Okay. But one thing I can say is that I've been serving the public for over 15 years now. Oh. Right, so I'm not auditioning for a job. I've already been doing the job without the title, without running for office. I've just been, and it shows with even with the recognition that I've gotten over the years that I've been doing this work, and I've been fighting for Floridians, man, for 15 years. This is not something that's new to me, right? This is something that I've been doing for
quite some time. It's in your blood.
It's in my blood. It's in my DNA.
It's in your vein.
It's in my DNA. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with just the history.
Of course. And as I always say before we jump in, you have a great book called Let My People Vote. It's for those of you who never read the book, it's probably one of the best books. And I encourage everyone to read, and it's just a great book. And thank you for that book and for your dedication. So now, before I jump to the questions, I want to jump straight to the AI centers. So there's a lot of politicians, a lot of running for a governor because Governor DeSantis is stepping out because of the limit of terms. Now there's a lot of, on both sides, party affiliated and affiliated. People wants to hear AI centers. Now, this is what I'm seeing because I have been, in the last 5 years, I interviewed many politicians from local level to the federal level, many commissioners I would say with more budget than other community deficits. They're pushing that, banning the AI centers. And I'm seeing, in contradictory, they might ending up in the areas, again, maybe African, Asian, Hispanic, white, below poverty area. So now we're always talking about how we're going to fix community if whatever we don't want to take it, we ending up toasting there. So question, what is your stance on the AI data centers?
Well, that's a good first question to start off on. I think that as it relates to AI data centers, there are way more questions than they are answers. And anytime you have that imbalance of more questions than answers, then you need to pump the brakes a little bit, right? I think especially as a governor, you have to be a balance, right? You want to invite innovation. You want to invite industries that can help stimulate the economy. But at the same time, you do not want that to happen at the cost of taxpayers or at the detriment of certain communities, right? And so, anytime, like whenever you see a bunch of politicians get together and try to force something down our throat, chances are that's not something that we should be embracing. And so it speaks to the deeper problem, right? Which is, and one of the reasons why I'm running is that I think when I go around the state and I talk to Floridians, one of the things that stand out is that they feel that government should be working for Floridians, not for other politicians and not for political parties, right? Or not even for special interests. The number one priority should be like the first three most important words in the Constitution is what? We the people, right? And so if the people are not prioritized, then a lot of bad things are going to happen, right? Other people, other industries will profit, but the people, the taxpayers, would end up suffering. And so we see politicians year after year after year after year, they'll find ways to put nice titles on things that make things sound good, right? But in the end, it's not good for the folks. And so I would really pump the brakes on that. I think that there is a balance that could be met, but that really dictates a very thoughtful and detailed engagement and analysis, right, of the pros and the cons, right? Right now we know that it's going to be a drain on the water supply. It's going to also we know we don't have the grid infrastructure to sustain that,
CO2
right?
emission.
And what kind of costs are going to be transferred to the consumer as opposed to the people who are building these data centers. And then you have to look at what are the locations. One of the big indicators that I would look at is that if you're not willing to have it in your backyard, then why should it be in my backyard?
There we go. Yeah, that's
just
simple
as simple
question.
as that. And so I think that when those questions get answered, right, then we can move forward with that conversation. But for right now, I think we should pump the brakes on this.
We should have a more analysis. So now, that's a great answer. So now, Desmond, for those who may not know your story, what life experience shaped you into a leader you are today, and why are you even running for the governor in Florida? You have so much successful path as a civic leader, and you become one of the top influential guy by the Time magazine, one of the 100 most influential people in the world. And you have, it was really hard to build a life this way. It took you a while. And I know your story. You went through 50,000 stops, non-stop. And now you are pumping the brake to another way.
Well,
could you share?
I don't think it's switching the brakes.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the day, the people that we elect should be public servants. They shouldn't be dictators, right? They shouldn't be know-it-alls. They should be the servant of the public. And that's how our democracy or our republic works, right? That we give up some of our individual rights so we can live together collectively. And then we elect people to do our biddings, right? They're public servants. And so I think that it's not a switch for me. I've been a public servant for quite some time. And, as you alluded to, yes, my history led me there, Used to be homeless, addicted to drugs, and, I was formerly incarcerated, and I really had a hard time, and mainly due to my drug addiction issues. I've been able to overcome those issues, and in overcoming those issues, I dedicated my life to giving back to my community. I dedicated my life to serving the community. I remember when I used to go to bed at night, I used to pray that God would give me the stamina and the wisdom and the strength to do His work, that every day that I get up and I walk out my door, that I would do something to make someone else's life a little bit better. And I use all of the tragedy in my life as a source of not only inspiration, right, to others, to let them know that they can overcome things, but as a guiding force for how I interact with folks, right? As a guiding force for me to be able to look at you and not be as judgmental as you, because I remember I used to make mistakes, and so I should be able to forgive you if you make a mistake, if you do something wrong. I should be able to connect with you along the lines of humanity. And that has been my through line throughout my career. And which leads to the answer to your question, why? Then why would you throw yourself in this cesspool of politics, right, when you doing good by Well, here's the answer. First of all, the people of Florida, Floridians deserve much better. Because I've lived in this state, right, and because I've had to rebuild my life from the bottom all the way back up, right, I understand what it feels like to live in a state where a government don't care about you, where a government don't see you, where a government don't work for you, right? They don't fight for you, right? I know what it feels like, right? But I also know what can happen when people from all walks of life, whether they're independents, Democrats, or Republicans, come together along some basic principles or basic values. I can see the beauty in it, right? And so when I look at the Floridians, what I see is the majority of Florida don't have a governor. They don't have a governor because of partisan politics that are more focused on division than uniting folks. You would have a governor that only cares about one portion of the population thing, right? And to me, I think Floridians deserve a governor that cares about the entire state, everybody, whether they vote for me or not, whether they look like me, whether they agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. If a person wants to be the governor of the state of Florida, then they should be the governor of the entire state and not just a governor that is guided by a small percentage of the population.
Great answer. So now, I want to say, if you get elected, what are the 3 biggest challenges facing Florida that you will tackle in your first 100 days in the office as the governor?
Well, there is, polls are very clear with what are the main issues. People are very clear with, like I said, I've traveled around the state. And let me tell you, I've talked to Republicans and Democrats and independents, and they all have the same problem. So there's no such thing as a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. It's a people problem or Floridian problem. And they'll tell you, affordability, runaway homeowners insurance, right? Housing, right? Crime, right? Public safety, right? And healthcare, right? Those are like the top issues there. But I think folks are missing something that's very important, right? There's a couple of things that's very important. First of all, when last have any one of your viewers ever had a person that was running for office or a person that's in office actually look at them in their face right now the way I am and just say, I love you. I love you. Because, see, let me tell you something. I believe that it is hard to govern a people if you don't care about them. And first and foremost, I think that Floridians need a leader that deep inside actually care about Floridians and not about political parties. Remember, when we talk about the Constitution, it says we the people. Not we the political party, not we the politician, but we the people. And I think that deep down inside, we want to know that person, whether it's the mayor, the commissioner, or governor, or state rep, or state senator, actually care about who we are and what we're going through, right? And don't prioritize political needs, don't prioritize special interest needs over my needs. And so first and foremost, I want to create a culture, right, where we have public servants that actually care about people first, right? And then they move on to other things. But they have to start first with understanding that it's the people who elected us and it's the people that we should be committed to serving. Another reason why I'm running as an MPA is that. So I only have to answer to God and to the people of Florida. I don't have to answer to political machines, which now allows me to focus on doing what's in the best interest of Floridians. But yes, we need to tackle affordability because here's the thing. All of the crisis that we have right now, all of the issues that Floridians are saying are important could have been solved years ago. And the only reason that it haven't been solved is because the people who we have in office are more concentrated or more concerned about cultural wars. And like I told some folks the other day, rather than waging a war on woke, they should have been waging the war on broke, right? Because people are Florida families are working harder than ever today, but yet they're falling further and further behind, right? And it's not because of lack of their efforts, it's because of lack of our elected officials' efforts to actually stick to the issues that they're supposed to be dealing with and not distract us by the infighting and the culture wars and all this partisan, doing things. They would do things to pit neighbor against neighbor. And that's another thing that I've seen was that Floridians are tired of waking up every day living in fear of their neighbor or hating their neighbor. That's not the way that we want to live our lives. And so, yes, we do have to address those issues.
So now, as I said, affordability, it's one of the biggest issue, but housing affordability has become one. And I always say public servants are leaders. But there is also people who serve each and every day, which is our first responders. And this is what I'm seeing, which is really sad. I want to ask the question, then I want to align sub questions underneath that. Housing affordability has become major issues across Florida. What specific solutions would you propose to help working families, teachers, first responders, and young professionals afford to live here? This is what's happening in one specific county that we live in, and many others. There's many police officers, firefighters, anybody that's behind the wheel his entire shift. So now, because our leaders are okay to help them, to make them safe, and these leaders make much more money than our first responders, and they can go home within 20 minutes. But our first responders who work in that particular county now are forced to go to a county beyond. So now imagine you are a family man, a firefighter living in our county, and now you defend that county, but because you used to live in that county, now you are forced to be an outsider county. I believe that's not fair.
Yeah.
That's not fair. So if you become a governor, what would you do in regards to that? And I see a lot of teachers are leaving the public schools because there is no any more stance on the kids and saying, you got to do this. Because the kids are now fighting with the teachers. It used to be the other way around. So how are we going to have a public sector when the kids go to school coming from the parents? There is no, everything is loose.
You actually asked about 2 or 3 questions in that one
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But let me start with the first one, as far as with our first responders. You know, when I see how we treat our first responders, right, I look at how we treat our veterans, right? There's a lot of lip service, right, to first responders, right? And there's a lot of showmanship when it comes to our first responders from politicians, right? And that's something that I'm trying to like to push away from or push back on. Like, let's not just give lip service to folks and tell, yeah, we're supporting first responders and we support our servicemen. Let me tell you, we got servicemen that are suffering with substance abuse addiction, that are homeless on the street, that are not getting the proper care, right? Because they're coming back from wars and they have mental health issues with PTSD, and instead of treating them, we're arresting them and stripping them of their civil rights for the rest of their life here in the state of Florida. And so, yeah, politicians give more lip service to things, right? That's why I'm trying to get away from the what do you call it, the talking points,
Sound bites.
the sound bites, and that's a bunch of baloney, right? Because when you scratch through the sound bites, you don't see much things of substance. As it relates to first responders, like, part of the problem is that our politicians have allowed businesses, right, corporations, greedy corporations, to go back on their word, right? And we've seen it in the insurance industry, right? We also see it in housing. To give you an example, if I'm a big-time developer and I want to develop an area of taxpayers' land, right, and you give me a break to build these condominiums or whatever, right? And what I had to promise is that a certain percentage of those housing units was going to be made available for low-income residents or even for first responders. What we see happen time and time again, and it didn't just start yesterday, it didn't just start 5 years ago, this thing has been going on for quite a number of years, is that these developers, after they get the tax breaks and everything to build this big housing development, right, they go back on their word, and the amount of units that they promised at the beginning that they were going to set aside for first responders or low-income families all of a sudden shrinks, right? And now they're just wanting to add more profit, and those units are actually being sold as regular units to the highest bidder, right? And so that is a direct result of politicians allowing businessmen to renege on their word or to go back on their word. That is I think, a very fundamental problem that has impacted various aspects of our lives and has had a direct relation to us not being able to afford a lot of things in our community. Let me back this up a little bit, right, and break this down even more, right? When you have, if you needed a loan and you went to the bank and you took out a loan for $1,000, you would have to pay that loan back to the bank. Not only do you have to pay the $1,000, but you have to pay what?
Interest rates.
Interest. what's been going on, right, is that we have politicians that have been treating the bank of taxpayers, right, as if it's their own personal account, and they're just giving away money to this person who may contribute to their campaign, or this person who may give them a nice position when they retire, or whatever, and they've been giving out money, like that developer there.
Yeah.
That land that developer bought, that was our land, right? That was taxpayers' dollars own that land, right? But yet we gave that person that, and they did not fulfill their obligation, and we didn't default on their loan, right? We have to start holding businesses accountable, holding corporations accountable. That if you're not going to do what you said you're going to do, then we're taking back our
stripping away.
and we're going to foreclose on this, and then that we're going to own that
We'll
property
find somebody
outright,
else,
right? And you because you have defaulted on your loan, now we will own this property, we will own this housing establishment, and now guess what we can do with it? We can make sure that our first responders have safe and affordable housing, that no one should have to leave our county. Who serves our county, they shouldn't have to live in another county. Period. We can do that, but it starts with holding people accountable to our taxpayers. If you're going to use our money for tax breaks, if you're going to use our money for subsidies, then you must deliver, right? You must fulfill your obligation. And an elected official's job is to make sure that they do. Do not continue to let corporations get over on Florida taxpayers.
Because of special interest.
Because of special interest. They're getting richer, we're getting poorer.
Yep.
There's
And
something
we're not
wrong with
getting
that.
anywhere. Sooner or later, we're all going to collapse. I mean, they're not going to collapse, the people are going to collapse. So education remains a major topic of debate. It's left and right, non-party. So what specific changes would you make to improve public education, workforce training, and opportunities for Florida students? Now, this is the question. Parents' rights, now reading, parent rights, should I be involved in the school education or not? I work with a lot of board of the schools, and everybody has a different opinion, depends from county to county. But as a governor, you have a sitting and said, and overseeing and said, wow, where is your stance when it comes down to education? Should the parents have the rights? What's going on in school? Should they not have? What would you do differently than other previous governor in the state of Florida does?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think they have to be a real commitment to our public school system. We haven't had that. You know, I don't care how much previous governors may talk about supporting public schools. Like, action speaks louder than words. And let me tell you what is a fact, that our teachers have been the lowest paid teachers in the country for years, right? And so you would know if somebody is for something by whether or not they invest in it, right? If you have not been investing in our children, if you have not been investing in our public education system, then quit saying for sound bites that you support it. That's a lie. That's what politicians do, right? They would lie to you to get elected. I can't go that route. I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a politician, right? I look at myself as a public servant, and as a public servant, first and foremost, teachers need to get paid on par with what teachers are making across this country. Absolutely. Point blank. There have to be a serious investment in our public education system. Like, there are some things that the government have to be, have some control over. And I'm going to tell you why. You remember this process about people giving up some of their inalienable rights in order to live together as a society, right? And then we do this, and there's some things that we're saying, okay, the government, we need you to make sure that these things are done. Protection, right? It should not go private. Education is one of those things, too, as well as corrections, right? And public safety. That needs to stay, like, the government needs to have their hand on this, right? Now, can they privatize to a certain degree? I do believe so, right? But the bulk of the responsibility should be on the government, which means that our public schools is a rock in our communities that needs to be supported, fully supported, right? Where we allow our teachers to do the best job that they can possibly do and expand the curriculums so our students could actually, I would say, compete, right? One of the things that we've done, we have cut back on even, what do you call it, the trade skills,
the trading
right?
school.
Not every child is going to
For college.
go to college and get a degree in engineering, whatever. right? But we've cut back the funding of those.
Trading and vocational.
Even something as simple as the band.
Yeah.
When I went to school, there were like 100 kids in the band.
Yeah.
Today, now you're seeing maybe 20, 30 kids in the band. Right? And that is because of a lack of investment. And then you create an uneven playing field because you create all these restrictions for public schools, but then you allow charter schools and private schools to have free reign, right? And we use public dollars that should be going to our public schools to help prop up private schools and charter schools. There's something inherently wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as governor, there have to be a real strong commitment to our public schools. I came through public schools, and the majority of people living in Florida came through public schools, right? And I think as governor, what you have to do, what a governor should do is allow the local municipalities to have a greater say in how their school systems are being administered, right? Take the politics out of school, right? Take all the culture wars out of school and allow local governments and local school boards, right, to dictate that. And guess who chooses the local school boards? The people in those communities, right? I can't be, and I should not be involved
unless something
that deeply involved in what's going on in Alachua County, what's going on in Dade County. Well, if I'm in all of those counties around school boards, then who is overseeing what's happening in the state?
In the state,
Who's making sure that the budget is passed timely each year, right? Because that is like a top priority according to our state constitution. But year after year after year after year, that's the last thing that gets done.
And then, as I said, you touch point on the corporations, how greedy they can become. Sometimes they give them a lot of jobs, but you said they're taking a lot of taxpayers' money, and then they're not obligating their responsibilities.
You have to hold
and
them
I know
accountable.
small businesses are backbones of the Florida economy. What will your administration do to help entrepreneurs start to grow and keep business in Florida open and keep going and inviting more small entrepreneurship to involve? And I say I love ingenuity. I love that when people are coming up, innovations is a great thing. So
I think one of the things is that you have to like seriously invest in the education piece, you know, on the trades and create a more vibrant a pool of employees. You know, if you allow people to get the skill sets, right, that allow people to earn more.
Correct.
And that helps create a more vibrant economy. Let me tell you something else that does, right, is how are we treating people like me, right? And what do you mean by people like me? People who might have made a mistake in the past, 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? There was a study that showed that Florida loses, over the last 10 years, we've lost over $300 billion of lost earnings. I want you to stop for a minute.
Wow.
That's $30 billion a year that people in Florida could be making, but didn't make simply because they made a mistake 10, 20, 30 years ago that they've already paid their debt for, right? But because of archaic laws or policies that serve no purpose other than to just restrict access to good jobs and education and housing, here we are losing $30 billion a year that could have been pouring into our economy. The other thing, when you look on the other side, we have rules that will prevent people like me from owning or even renting a home in the state of Florida, right? And the National Realtors Association says that anytime a person buys a home, it creates $122,000 that would be poured into that local economy. If there's over 6 million people in the state of Florida that has a record like me, right? Just think, if half of us was able to actually buy a house, that's almost $500 billion that will be pouring into our local economies and pouring into our small businesses that's in our communities, right? And allowing them to grow. And so I think that when we talk about, especially our small business owners, how are we creating environments that would actually have more dollars pouring into these small businesses and helping them thrive? How are we cutting back on restrictions, right, that allow them to get licenses that they need to get, the permits that they need to get in a timely fashion to be able to compete with larger corporations, right? And if we're able to actually successfully engage in those two practices, I do believe that you will see more and more small businesses thrive.
And as you said, everything goes back to the education and teaching, giving the teachers what they're supposed to do, and that's how we make a better society. So this is the last question. Then we have one question on the end to look it up and why people should vote for. But you have spent much of your career bringing people together from different backgrounds all over the place. How would you work with the people who disagree with you politically to move Florida forward?
Let me tell you, that is a great question. In this campaign of mine, in this new journey, I have a leader, a role model that I look to.
Okay.
Right? His name is Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
There's a book that I would recommend anyone read, and it's called Team of Rivals.
Okay.
And the book was written about Abraham Lincoln during the time of the Civil War when he was elected president, right? At the time when the country was tearing itself apart. He created his cabinet. And the people who were a part of his cabinet were his rivals, were people who thought he wasn't smart enough, or people who was opposed to him politically.
Yeah.
But you know what Abraham Lincoln, and this was the genius of Abraham Lincoln. He said at a time where our country was tearing itself apart, right, where the republic was tearing itself apart, that we needed people, he needed to get people who did not agree with him, but whose love for the republic was greater than their political party or their personal ambitions, right? And that's what he did. He found, and he found people whose love for the country or love for people was bigger than their political party alliances or their own personal desires.
Their ego.
Their ego.
Yeah.
And they were able to engage. Was it easy? No, it wasn't.
No, it's not.
They were able to engage in some very tough conversations, but emerging out of that was a pathway of healing and growth for this country. I do believe that we're at a time right now where we're seeing these political parties engage in a civil war, red versus blue, right? All over this country, whether you're in a blue state or in a red state, they're both doing things, right, that is contrary to what the principles of our country is all about, right? And they've become so consumed that what we're seeing now, even here in Florida, you're seeing, even for the people that's running for office now, what you're going to end up seeing is that you're going to see candidates that are in the best interest of the political parties and not necessarily candidates that's in the best interest of the people.
Correct.
Another reason why I'm running as a no-party affiliated candidate, because we need to concentrate more on what's in the best interest of the people. And so Abraham Lincoln was able to bring together, whether they were Republicans, independents, and I'm just speaking in modern day language, but to bring these folks together. And I know for a fact that there are people in our legislature right now, there are public servants in different communities who are irrespective of their political affiliations, that deep down inside they care about the people that they serve, and they want to do what's in the best interest of the people in their community, not just the people who vote for them, but for every citizen. Because guess what? Even in our own families, we have people in our own families that are registered Republicans and registered
and now they're fighting
Democrats.
against each other.
Should we be not caring about how their lives are? There are elected officials that are there. The problem was that we've had leaders that have created this environment of division, right? And that is one thing as governor that I would immediately change. That no, we don't have to fight each other. No. We don't have to hate each other because of our political differences, right? Or because of our ethnical differences. Yeah. We don't have to hate each other because of our religious differences. That in spite of all of that, we can still connect with each other along the lines of humanity. And I did that already. I am the only person that's in this race that's ever engaged in a statewide effort tackling a very complex problem and has done it in a way that brought people together from all walks of life. Yep. Over 1 million Republicans, over 1 million independents, over 1 million Democrats actually voted. Actually, 5.1 million people voted yes for the issue, right? And that was more people than who voted for the governor.
Of course.
Right? And so I've already shown that there is a better way to conduct business in this state, right? That where we don't have to live in an environment to where we always have to look over our shoulder. We have to always watch what we say or watch what we do because we don't want to get canceled or whatever or attacked. We don't need to live in that environment. We can live in an environment where we're able to be tolerant of each other's views, and we could come to consensus on the best way forward and not allow just one side to dictate everything, because that never works out.
No, never, never. And my last question, if you could leave, and I said, look in the camera, I say, if you could leave Florida Waters with one message about your vision for the state future, what would that be?
Wow. First and foremost, man, I want to leave with the same way I started, by first stating that I love you, right? That I want to live in a state where love, right, is the driving force, that we're able to overlook our differences and see that and come together along the things that actually unite us, the values that unite us, wanting to raise a family in a safe community, wanting to be able to come to the aid of our neighbors and live in communities where we don't have to live in fear or have anger drive our actions every day. I do believe that we can create that kind of state. And I think it starts with love, and it starts with a commitment, and it starts with an acknowledgement that we need more public servants and less politicians. We need a government that actually is working for people like us, and not a government that's only working for political parties or politicians. That's the kind of state that I want to live in, and I believe that the majority of Floridians want to live in that kind of state as well.
And where they can find you?
They can find me at DesmondMeade.com. You can on all social media platforms, and definitely online, DesmondMeade.com. Come be a part of this movement. Let's build Florida together in the way that we want to see Florida. I tell people to dream. Bring your best dreams to the conversation. What would you like Florida to look like in the next 5-10 years? How would you like your family to be able to thrive in this state? And I'm willing to work with anyone. I don't care what your political parties are. I'm willing to work with anyone to make that dream a reality.
As again, guys, you know, his name is Desmond Meade. He's running for a governor of the state of Florida. He's also a civic leader. You should do research on him. Amazing guy. Our job is here to bring the leaders from the local level, the state level, federal level, to debate, to having a good conversation, logical, common sense conversation without attacking each other, dividing each other. Because if we disagree, that's okay. But he said, if we disagree, we can come to the table and find what is the best. You might have something good, I might have something, but let's put it together, put it in the stance, and then roll it out, and then see how it works. But again, my friend, thank you so much for having. It was a pleasure having you here. I'm really glad that you're stepping up. At the moment I saw you running, I said, I have to have you on the show. And I wish you the best. We'll share, like, comment. We'll help you as much as we can. Okay. We support you. We love you. What have you done so far? Looking forward, see what you're going to do in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Iggy Podcast, episode 72. Thank you. We love you. Care and share. And let's bring our community together. Thank you. God bless you.